Ukrainian and Russian negotiators are getting underway in Istanbul, Turkey. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan welcomed the delegations, saying both sides had legitimate concerns. It's the first face-to-face ceasefire discussions in more than 2 weeks. Delegations from Ukraine and Russia previously met 3 times on the border region of Belarus. Talks then shifted online, but achieved little. Meanwhile, it has emerged that 3 participants in March peace talks with Russia, including Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, suffered poisoning symptoms such as temporary blindness. And let's go now to our correspondent Julia Han in Istanbul, outside the Donbass Palace, where the talks are taking place. What's happening now, Julia?
Well, the talks between the Ukrainian and the Russian delegations are about to start here at the Dolmabahce presidential office in Istanbul. The meeting is closed to the press, and it's not clear whether any public statements will be made throughout the day, statements to the media. The talks are expected to continue tomorrow. What I can tell you, and you already mentioned that, Turkish President Erdogan himself welcomed both delegations. His government is trying to emerge as a key mediator in this conflict, in this crisis. So for him, there is a lot at stake. He really wants to see these talks lead somewhere. And here we're already talking about expectations. According to the Turkish leader, that's something he said last night, and I quote him here, progress has been made. Things are moving into a positive direction. But then again, we know that previous rounds of talks, both online and face-to-face, including the meeting of the 2 countries' foreign ministers here in Turkey earlier this month, have made no progress at all. And according to the Ukrainian side, their most ambitious goal for this week's talks here in Turkey, that's according to the Ukrainian foreign minister, is to achieve a ceasefire, which would of course be urgently needed for civilians inside Ukraine. We heard another senior Ukrainian official say that he doesn't think any breakthrough will be made on the main issues, and the main issues are those concerning Ukraine's long-term political future. That just shows how difficult these talks have been and are likely to be today as well.
And do we have any idea about how high level these diplomats are? Because I guess the higher the level is an indication that the talks are being taken more seriously by both sides. What do we know?
Well, right now we don't have an official list of who's part of each of the country's delegations. There have been some rumors that Ukraine's foreign minister somehow involved a presidential advisor to President Putin on the Russian side. But as I said, we don't have any official list. On the Turkish side, we saw Turkish President Erdogan welcoming the delegations. He also said that his foreign minister will be here to assist with anything needed. But right now we assume that the talks will be held just between the Russian and the Ukrainian team.
Okay, Julia Han reporting for us from Istanbul, outside of the presidential palace. Thanks for that. And we have this assessment from DW correspondent Amin Asif.
The first thing that needs to be said is that Russia is already making concessions, it seems. It looks like the original intent of the invasion was to occupy Ukraine, to take over the government in Kiev, and that clearly is not happening at this point. At least Russia has been frustrated militarily. But what Zelensky has said in terms of Ukraine's concessions is that he put in the most clearest terms to date that he's willing to make Ukraine a neutral country. That means not joining NATO, not having nuclear weapons on its territory. He's hinted at that before, but he's never come out and said it. What he did also say was that he'd have to put this question up to the people of Ukraine, to put it up to a referendum. And at this point, just talking to Ukrainians here on the ground, it doesn't seem clear that they would vote for anything that appeared to give Russia concessions. Now, the Donbass is another question. In eastern Ukraine, a lot of people speak Russian. There are pro-Russian people there, living there, and that area has been contested since 2014. So what Zelensky said was that we'll make that a separate question. Those negotiations will happen after a ceasefire in the rest of Ukraine is agreed to. And that is a concession in itself, to say that we will put off those negotiations until we can resolve a ceasefire here in the rest of Ukraine.
And I'm